Experts keep telling us that inflation is going to fall. But after today's disastrous figure, how can we believe any of them? Answer: we can't. Chancellor Jeremy Hunt has staked the government's reputation on inflation falling, pledging to cut it in half this year. In last week's spring budget, he boasted it would fall to just 2.9% at the end of 2023. That felt optimistic at the time, and it looks like mission impossible today, as official figures show consumer price inflation climbed in February from 10.1% to 10.4%. Hunt has been grasping at straws, and he's not the only one. Market forecasters were confidently predicting that inflation would fall to 9.9% in February. They weren't even close. In their defense, February's figure is hardest to predict, as it's when the underlying shopping basket used to reflect changing consumer buying patterns are updated. This year frozen berries were added, but I don't think we can blame them. Deeper, darker forces are at play, with long-term core inflation up 6.2%, when those highly paid analysts had predicted 5.7%. Core inflation is also sticky in the S, which suggests it's getting embedded in the system. Worse, it's the essentials that are rising fastest, with UK food prices up a terrifying 18.2%, the fastest growth since 1977. And gas and electricity bills soaring, too. The inflation war is far from won. And this year could be even tougher than we, or Jeremy Hunt, imagine. The Bank of England now faces a choice of two poisons when deciding whether to increase base rates at tomorrow's meeting. The BO needs higher interest rates to defeat inflation, but lower rates to ease the banking crisis. It can't have both. After today, the BO will almost certainly prioritize inflation and hike rates, probably by 0.25% to 4.25%, and hope the banks can take it. Thankfully, the housing market has not crashed yet, as many predicted, but its resilience will be tested to the max unless inflation falls, and soon. We have fallen prey to wishful thinking on inflation. We want it to fall, desperately. So keep telling ourselves it's going to happen soon. Next month, or maybe the next. I've been guilty of this myself, as are those wayward inflation forecasters. In 2021, BO Governor Andrew Bailey claimed inflation would be transitory. He was wrong too. Next, it could be the turn of a certain Mr. Hunt. There is no easy way out of today's mess. Although former BO policymaker David Blanchflower seems to think there is. He is calling Bank Governor Andrew Bailey to slash interest rates to 3% and print $50 billion via another round of quantitative easing. He said the alternative is to seeing the UK slip into a depression. Blanchflower is a long-standing BO critic, but it's a good thing he isn't holding the monetary controls, with experts warning his plan would trigger hyperinflation. There's a famous quote by screenwriter William Goldman that applies to monetary policy just as much as Hollywood. Nobody knows anything. Not one person in the entire motion picture field knows for a certainty what's going to work. Every time out it's a guess and, if you're lucky, an educated one. That applies to David Blanchflower, Andrew Bailey, baffled inflation forecasters, and right at the top of the tree, Jeremy Hunt. Also me, in case you're wondering. We know that inflation will fall for technical reasons, as last year's supercharged figures drop out of the annual statistics. After that, well, nobody knows.